everybody.
What's good, hip hop world? This is Wayne, courtesy of Wayne's Hip Hop Blog, as well as We Love Hip Hop on Facebook. This is my first interview, and I'm joined today by a very special guest. This man has been in the hip hop world since 1988, and along with Big Daddy Kane, Coogee Rap, and Craig G, you heard this man as part of the Symphony, one of the greatest posse cuts of all time. I'm joined by the one and only, the legendary Masta Ace, who is currently in the studio right now in Manhattan, New York, working on some good things, and I'm pretty sure we'll get to that during this interview. So, what's good, Masta Ace? How's everything going?
How you doing, Wayne? Thanks for taking the time to interview me, and I'm looking forward to these questions. You know, I see you all the time on Twitter, and you're always making some nice points and chiming in on different things going on in hip-hop, so kind of curious to see what you got, what we're going to talk about today.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I got a lot of questions here. It actually didn't take me a long time to come up with them, you know, once I heard about the interview. So I'll go ahead and get started here. First of all, you could tell us about your background, you know, your earliest experiences with music and who you grew up listening to. We can begin with that.
All right, well, I grew up listening, really, really early on. You know, all the kind of mixtapes that was coming down from the Bronx, Grandmaster Flash, Furious 5, Cold Crush, Treacherous 3, all those really early on. But then, you know, those were like kind of party crews, and they would rock parties and stuff like that. But then when records started being made and lyricism started coming into it, I think the very first cat that influenced me was LL Cool J, and then Rakim came out, and then Big Daddy Kane came out, and then KRS-One came out. Like, those were kind of like the 3 or 4 cats that when they dropped, whatever style I was writing in or rhyming in, okay, I made an adjustment. You know what I'm saying? Like, you hear guys doing it. I heard some guys doing it at a higher level than everybody else was doing it. And it made me rethink my plan of how I wanted to approach lyrics and lyricism. I got to throw Slick Rick in there too, because he had a very famous party rhyme called Lottie Dottie that really was just a party. He did this rhyme at this party with Dougie Fresh. Somebody recorded it, and that thing floated all around New York City in a matter of a summer, and it made it all the way down to Brooklyn. And so, you know, hearing him tell a story, the way he told a story, that had a big influence on me as well. Like the way I got my break was really writing a rap that was based on Lottie Dottie and kind of the way that song was written. I wrote a rap that won this contest, and it was really based on Slick Rick, so I got to throw Slick Rick in there too.
Okay, all right, not bad. Those are some legendary names right there, courtesy of the '80s. So glad to hear that. In a few sentences, how did you end up hooking up with the Juice Crew? You know, yourself and Coogee Rap, Big Daddy Kane, and the rest of the crew. How did you all link up?
Well, I kind of alluded to it earlier. That rap that I wrote that was kind of based on Slick Rick's Lottie Dottie. I took that rap to a contest in Queens, New York, at a skating rink called United Skates of America. I entered that contest along with about 40 other people. I wound up winning the contest, and first prize in that contest was 6 hours of studio time with, at the time, very well-known producer Marley Marl. And that's really how I got involved in the Juice Crew and meeting Marley Marl, was just winning that contest. And, you know, they paid him for the studio time, and I went into his crib and I laid down my first couple of demos, and those couple of demos led to him asking me to be a part of a compilation album that he was doing called Marley Marl in Control Volume 1, which featured a bunch of different members of the crew, Biz Markie, Big Daddy Kane, everybody. And
Yeah.
Craig G, and so he asked me to be a part of that compilation. I had 2 songs on that compilation, and then the third song was a posse cut, a very famous posse cut called the Symphony.
Right.
And we shot a video for the Symphony in the winter of 1988. I think it came out in '89, and from the time that video dropped, and I was in that Western scene and walked into the saloon, and my name was put across the bottom of the screen. Ever since that happened, I've been in the music business.
Okay, good. And I just want to throw in there the Symphony. That's actually my pick for the best posse cut of all time. And I'm not just saying that because you were a part of it along with the rest, but it's like everything about that one song just epitomized what a posse cut should be. You know, dope beat, dope lyrics. So that's my pick for the best posse cut of all time. And since we're on that song, how were they recording sessions with G-Rap, Craig G, and Big Daddy Kane? I'm pretty sure those were some memorable times right there.
Well, the day that we recorded that song, you know, I've told this story before, but I wasn't actually supposed to be on the Symphony. Okay. I was really just tagging along to watch the fellas record the song, and I just wanted to be around the creativity and see guys do their thing. And MC Shan was supposed to be the 4th MC on the song. He decided not to be. He decided that day not to be a part of it. So Marley just was going to go forward with just the 3 of them, with Craig, G-Rap, and Kane. And like I said, I was really kind of tagging along. And went over to Marley's crib and asked Astoria, Queens, and watched those guys write their rhymes to the beat. And when it came time for the first person to rap, nobody wanted to go first. Everybody's looking at each other like, yo, you go. Nah, you go. You go. I'm not going. You go. And so, you know, Marley was like, yo, these guys are scared, man. Yo, Ace, why don't you just go warm the mic up, you know, spit something just to get everybody warmed up or loosen everybody up. So I went on the mic. You know, I don't think he had any intention on keeping the rhyme when he asked me to do it. It was just a way to kind of break the ice because everybody wanted to. I think each one of them wanted to hear what the other person had to say first before they said their rhyme, so they can make their little adjustments or whatever. And so I said my rhyme, and when I said my rhyme, everybody loosened up and everybody laid their verses down. And then he listened to the whole thing and decided to keep my verse, and you know, the rest is history.
Yeah, that's interesting because up until this point, I never knew that MC Shan was supposed to be the 4th member. If you don't mind me asking, what led to him not wanting to be a part of that?
Well, you know, the story there's a couple of different versions of what happened. You know, Marley Marl's version is that you know, at that time Shan was the biggest artist on the label at that time. He was the guy that was selling the most records, had the most fame, had the most fans, and you know, according to Marley, he didn't want to be a part of something. He felt like it was kind of, you know, not being necessarily a good look for him being on a song with a bunch of new guys. So he elected to not be on the song. Shan went on later to tell his version of what happened, and he said that Marley had in the past not paid him for doing certain things, and he didn't want to be a part of it because of that. So, you know, those are the different versions of why he wasn't on the song or decided not to be on the song. You know, we don't really know what the truth is. It's probably somewhere in the middle, and that's pretty much what it is.
Okay, cool. Like I said, that's interesting because, you know, up until this point, I never knew that. But continuing on, I want to talk about the debut, Take a Look Around, which came out in 1990. A very good debut, in my opinion.
Thank you.
No problem. I recall hearing a story that Biz Markie couldn't make it to the studio for the song Me and the Biz. Can you shed a little more light on that?
Well, it was a little deeper than he couldn't make it to the studio. At that time, him and Marley had a little spat or whatever, and I'm not sure exactly what it was over. It was over credit for other songs that was made or whatever. Marley was getting too much credit or whatever it was. I wasn't involved in it. But I had this idea for this song that I wanted Biz on this song. We go back and forth. So I wrote my parts. I wrote his parts. I wrote my parts. I laid down my verses, and then I laid down his verses. And the way Biz always did it, with the songs that Kane wrote for him, Kane would lay down Biz's parts, and then Biz would memorize the parts by listening to Kane say the rhyme.
Yeah.
So that's what I was told. So that's how I did it. I wrote his parts, and then I said his parts in what I considered to be his voice. I just wanted him to know where I stopped rhyming and where he started rhyming. So I changed my voice so that he would know, okay, this is where I come in. And
All right.
so we laid everything down, and then I presented it to him, and he was like, I'll do the song, but I'm not going to record it at Marley's house. You got to come to my crib and record it. He was staying out in Jersey, and
Okay.
that was going to be a little inconvenient for me to get out to Jersey. And Marley was like, "Yo, man, let's just leave the song how it is. I think it's kind of cool. Let's see if we can fool people. They're going to think it's Biz or not know it's Biz. And nobody ever did a song where they impersonating somebody. So let's run with it." I was a little reluctant about the idea, but Marley had way more experience than me, so I listened to what he said, and the song "Me and the Biz" came out, and obviously Biz is not on the song, but those are the rhymes that I wrote for Biz.
All right, cool. That's more interesting information right there. But you did a good job overall. I still listened to that song today, and I was like, okay, Ace, he did a great job with that, So I think
I know I had his flow down, the style and flow that he normally rhymed, and I definitely felt like I had a good feel for that. I don't know if I really pulled off the voice, but some people were fooled. To this day, some people are still fooled.
right. And I just want to throw this out there. This year, 2015, that marks the 25th anniversary of your debut, and it's like, wow, I still can't believe how fast the time has went by. So yeah, take a look around. Celebrates 25 years, and you can expect a blog post on that, in addition to everything else I do. So be on the lookout for that. Just wanted to throw that in.
25 years. It seems like it was yesterday, honestly. Like, it really doesn't seem like it's been that much time.
Yeah. All right. We can skip over a couple of years ago to 1993, which is when your second album came out, Slaughterhouse.
Yeah.
And of course, we got classics like Jeep Ass Nigga, which I played a few moments ago prior to the interview. I was up in here losing my mind almost. And of course, Saturday Night Live and Born to Roll. It was also at this point that you had the Masta Ace Incorporated thing going, and you had Lower Digger and Paula Perry and the rest of the crew. You still keep in contact with them?
Nah, I don't keep in contact with Lower Digger or Paula Perry. But Ice U Rock, who are, also were on that album, and my man Unique from Ice U Rock produced a bunch of songs on that album. I'm still in touch with those guys. We see each other sometimes at cookouts and different things. Yeah.
Okay. And what about DJ Steady Pace?
Oh, Steady lives like 15 minutes from me in Jersey. He came over my house for Christmas, New Year's. Like, he bring his girlfriend over. We hang out. That's my boy before music. So like before even a record was ever made, like we was friends.
All right, cool. All right. We can move to 1994, another memorable year in hip hop, which is when Spike Lee's Crooklyn came out. And from that soundtrack, one of the most memorable songs was the Crooklyn Dodger song you did with Buckshot from Black Moon and Special Ed. Was there any plans to do a collaboration album with the three of you, or was that song just a one-time thing?
No, there was. Spike actually had a deal with MCA Records, and asked us to do an album, me, Ed, and Buck, to do an album. And I was excited about the idea. I thought it was a great idea. I thought it was a great way to kind of move my brand further forward, my name further forward. The timing was perfect for me because at that time I had a song Born to Roll, which was the remix to Jeep Ass Nigga that was tearing up the radio. It was all over the place. It was getting a lot of play all over the country, and the one place it wasn't getting played was in New York. And
Oh wow.
yeah, and New York was mad at me at that time when Born to Roll was blowing up, and I had the video with the LA car show and all the, it was showing all the lowrider cars and all of that. Yeah, New York wasn't really feeling me at that time, and so the Crooklyn album would have been a great way to balance out, the backlash of, oh, Ace is on some West Coast stuff now, because that was kind of the sentiment back then.
Yeah.
In New York, I would run into people, yo, what's up, man? You on that West Coast stuff now, whatever, It was really kind of pre the East-West real beef, but it was already brewing. Like, people were kind of taking the position of, pick a side, who you with us, who we with them, you with us, you with them. And
yeah,
I was like, yo, I'm with hip hop, man. I'm just making good music that people like. But in any event, the Crooklyn album would have been was a great opportunity for me. Unfortunately, there were too many other outside people involved in making the album happen, and at the time, Buckshot and Drew High, they had just did a deal with Priority Records to distribute their label, and so they were very busy and had a lot going on, and so because they were busy and had a lot going on, it just didn't happen, man.
Yeah, that's interesting because I guarantee you, had that album dropped, we would likely still be talking about it today, and I could just think of the possibilities in terms of production. I mean, Q-Tip.
Yeah, I just wonder what kind of songs would have come from that, because it was going to be produced entirely by Tribe Called Quest, like Tip and Ali were going to produce the whole album. So I just love to know what kind of songs like never got made that would have got made.
Yeah. Okay. All right, and then we go to 1995, which is my personal favorite year in hip hop, by the way. That saw the release of the third album, Sitting on Chrome. Would you consider that album having more of a West Coast sound in terms of production as opposed to Take a Look Around in Slaughterhouse?
I don't think so. I mean, it was definitely not as dark as, Slaughterhouse was a really dark, grimy, grungy album.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
Sitting on Chrome was definitely a cleaner sounding album. Like it was made in sort of the it was made kind of in the wake of Dr. Dre dropping The Chronic, which was this crystal clear, loud, well produced sounding album, and coming off of Slaughterhouse, which was so dark, so dirty, so just crunchy. It was my attempt at trying to make a crispier, just more pleasing to the ear sounding from a sound, just pure sound. I wanted the bass to be really loud and banging, and so I went into the studio to try to make that. What did come from that album is a couple of singles that might have made you feel that way. INC Ride was a song where I sampled the Isley Brothers, and we shot the video in Hollywood, on Hollywood Boulevard, and it was during the time when on a Friday night when they would cruise Hollywood Boulevard. So you had all these low riders. There was a whole lot of LA natives just enjoying themselves on a Friday, Saturday night in their cars, and we captured that with the camera. And so that video kind of set the tone for in people's minds that this was a West Coast, geared album. If you listen to the songs on there like Eastbound and the B-side, there's a lot of records on there that are still, very much grounded in what New York hip hop sounded like at that time. Yeah. With the exception of maybe Sitting on Chrome and INC Ride, the rest of the album was just regular good hip hop from New York. But I was trying to kind of walk this fine line. I was calling it Brooklyn bass music and all this kind of stuff, just trying to figure out a way to make a balance of music that would appeal to everybody, not just the East Coast, but East and West. And like I said, that album came at a time where people were kind of, the sentiment was pick a side. You either with us or you with them.
Yeah.
And I was trying to walk that line at that time when you were really supposed to pick a side. So that album got caught up in which side. What is this? Does this belong to us or does this belong to them? And that's what I have to say about that record.
Yeah, looking back at that time, just to throw this in there, it's like it was a lot of stuff going on in terms of the East and the West Coast thing. And looking back on it in retrospect, it seems silly, but it's like pick a side. Wow, that's not sure what else to say about that, but that's how it was at the time. Continuing on, it also wasn't long after the Sitting on Chrome album that we saw the split of Masta Ace Incorporated, and it seemed like you took a hiatus at that time. I would say from 95 to like 2001. So what happened in between those years? Seemed like you took a little break.
Yeah, I took a break from being an artist. At that time, right after Sitting on Chrome came out, I signed a new deal with Big Beat Records, which was distributed by Atlantic.
Okay. I remember
that. Yeah, and I went in the studio from about 96, into 96, through the whole year of 97, working on this album for Big Beat, putting these songs together. I had somewhere around 15 songs. I was working with a bunch of different producers, but this one main producer from Westchester by the name of Spunk Bigger. And he was about to be like this real big name cat. Like he was making all these really nice beats. Now, keep in mind now the climate in hip hop at that time was Bad Boy. Bad Boy was killing the airwaves with all of this music. They were sampling just all of this old disco and soul records and making hits out of these records, rapping over them. You had the track masters with their production. And it was kind of like I call it an arms race because everybody was out there trying to grab that next soul or disco record that nobody rapped over yet and trying to hurry up and make a hit out of this next record. And so the arms race was going on, and I'm trying to make this record for Big Beat that was nothing like Sitting on Chrome. They were thinking they were going to get, the Masta Ace that made INC Ride and Sitting on Chrome and kind of had this radio-friendly songs that could work on the radio. And I went back in the studio and I started making these songs that were more true to what I wanted to do. And when I started to let them hear the music, they didn't feel like it was what they thought they were getting. It was like, well, where's the radio songs? Where's the songs? We're trying to compete with Bad Boy and all this kind of R&B laden hip hop, and that's what's winning right now. You're not bringing that to the table, and these are the kind of conversations that you had to have when you were signed to these labels that were distributed by majors. And so, we had a couple of meetings. They made some suggestions. They told me to, maybe I should go in the studio with Changing Faces and Brian McKnight and some of these other R&B artists and try to throw them on some hooks. And, when you're making music and you have a passion for making music, you want your music to be heard. You want it to come out. So part of me was saying, okay, let me try to give them what they want and try to go back in the studio and rework some of these songs to make them more comfortable with the music. And I went back and I made some changes to a few records and tried to add that R&B element to it the best I could. But the fact of the matter is, it just wasn't, I didn't feel it.
Yeah.
So ultimately they decided to shelf that record. And that was around 98. They shelved that record. They decided they weren't going to put it out. I got dropped from that deal. And then I was out there, no deal, about 15, 16 songs that weren't going to ever see the light of day. And I had two artists. I had Paula Perry and I had Lachey, that I had been working with behind the scenes, putting music together with. So I just said, I'm going to take my energy and my effort and put it into these artists. I wasn't worried about me as an artist anymore. I started focusing more on the production side. I had been producing. A lot of people didn't know how many of the records that I put out of my own that I actually produced. You know, Born to Roll I produced, INC Rod, Sitting on Chrome. These are all records that I actually produced. So I said I'm gonna focus on production. So I started putting together a beat, a beat catalog and shopping that. Started taking meetings with A&Rs at labels and playing beats, and working on the Paula Perry album and the Lachey albums. I said I'm going to focus on being behind the scenes, being an executive producer, and I don't need to make records anymore. You know, at that time, New York was mad at me, and I didn't think there was any way New York was going to give me another chance anyway. So I was like, all right, I'll stay behind the scenes. So Lachey dropped an album in '97. We had an album that we did for Paula Perry that bounced around to a couple of different labels. It was actually a really good album with a lot of great features on it, but the album got shelved by Motown eventually, because she wound up on Motown eventually, and that album got shelved. So there was and then probably like '99, after the Lachey album came out, that deal fell through, didn't work out. She was on Warner Brothers. Warner just wasn't able to put it together. They were just they struggled with black music, period. And so then I found myself just kind of in limbo. You know what I mean? Like basically three projects in a row that I worked on. Mine got shelved. Paula Perry's got shelved. The Lachey's came out, but the deal went sour within half a year. And so I was just kind of really disenchanted with the whole game, and just really like, I got to figure something else out. Music business is really frustrating me, right? I was just in a frustrating moment. So that's where I was around '99. And then in 2000, I got called out to Philadelphia to work with Jazzy Jeff. He was out there working with his team of producers under the Touch of Jazz title. I went out there and met a bunch of producers at Jazzy Jeff's studio, a bunch of incredibly talented guys. My man Darren, Limitless Henson, and a bunch of other dudes that were making all of this great music in these little small MIDI rooms. And it was like you had about 3 or 4 different rooms going on, and producers in each room, and you could literally walk from room to room and hear beats and hear music being made. And that got me excited about music again. And that was '99. And then in 2000, I still wasn't sure I was going to do another album, though. I just wasn't sure that anybody cared. In 2000, I went and did a tour in Europe. I hadn't really done a full tour like that ever. I went out to Europe and I did 13, 14 shows in a row in 2000, right around the end of 2000. And when I came back from that tour, seeing the reactions of people, the excitement of the people that came out to the clubs, it made me realize that there was still people out there that wanted to hear music from me. And I came back home from that tour, and I talked to my at the time my guy Filthy Rich and DJ Rob. They had been saying, "Yo, do another record," and I was like, "Nah, nobody cares." But after seeing the reaction of that tour, I came back and I said, "Yo, I'm ready to go in the studio and I have some ideas. I got some things I want to get off my chest that I didn't really get off my chest." I felt like I had left the game on not on my terms, but on everybody else's terms. So I said I want to go in the studio and do one more record and kind of leave on my own terms. And that's when I made Disposable Arts.
Okay, a lot of interesting information there. And speaking of that album, that's what we're going to go into now. Just want to mention one thing about that cover earlier when you had said Disenchanted. That cover pretty much encapsulated your feelings at the time when you think about it. It was a great album, and it was one of the more slept on albums in 2001. Granted, 2001 was not a big year outside of the Nas and Jay-Z battle, but it was slept on, and it also started a trend with your later albums having some type of creative concept to them. And I can say the same thing about 2004's A Long Hot Summer. My question is, did you plan to go in the direction of continuous conceptual albums, or was it a spontaneous occurrence, like it just happened as you were recording?
I think when I did Slaughterhouse, that was sort of the birthplace for these concept albums. I wasn't quite sure how to pull it off in terms of telling a story from beginning to end, but I was experimenting on Slaughterhouse and on Sitting on Chrome with the concept of telling a story on a record, and it wasn't until I got to Disposable Arts that I finally figured out the formula and how to really pull it off. The concept albums were being experimented on with my Slaughterhouse album and with my Sitting on Chrome album. Those were concept albums, but it wasn't until Disposable Arts that I really figured out how to pull it all together and really tell a story with a beginning, middle, and end. And once I figured out the formula for that, that's what I have been doing going forward from that point.
Okay. All right. And just wanted to throw this in there as well. At this time, were you pretty much satisfied with your career at this point, considering all you've did since the symphony? Were you pretty much satisfied at this point?
I was far from satisfied. I was actually, my career actually had a jump in activity and action from Disposable Arts forward.
Okay.
I credit that album to this day. I credit that album for basically extending my career for over a decade. Because right before that album, I was kind of at the end of the line. I wasn't even excited about doing music. There wasn't really fans out there that were really interested in what I was doing. And from the time that I dropped Disposable Arts, everything just took off. I started touring super, super extensively in Europe and Australia and Canada. I've done countless tours since that album came out. Of course, I dropped A Long Hot Summer 3 years later in 2004, and then have been just consistently putting together projects. After Long Hot Summer, of course, I did EMC, the group album with Strickland and Punchline and Wordsworth. I followed that up with the project where I did with Ed O.G. Then I did Son of Yvonne, M.A. Doom, Son of Yvonne collaboration project with MF Doom Beats, and then the EMC EP that just came out last May, and now we got the new EMC album that's about to drop this April, followed by my first solo album since 2004, which I'm super excited about. I don't have a title yet, but I have at least 12 songs ready to go.
Okay, cool. That's good news right there. Speaking of EMC, going back to the group for a moment, how did you all hook up?
It goes back to 2001 again. It goes back to Disposable Arts. I featured those guys on Disposable Arts. I met them on two different occasions, but I met all of them in 2000. Thought they were talented, asked them to be on Disposable Arts. Strickland was featured on 2 songs on Disposable Arts. Punching Words was also featured on 2 songs on Disposable. And then when I went out to do my tour in October, or September, October of 2001, I asked those guys to go on the road with me. Punching Words opened up. Strickland shared the stage with me, and then at the end of each night, we would bring Punching Words back out. We do a little freestyle cypher for the crowd. It was like a super dope tour. We did about 26 shows in 30 days. I mean, it was a grind, but it was a great tour, a memorable tour, a lot of photos, a lot of video, a lot of fun. That tour stands out in our minds because it actually we actually got on a plane about 11 or 12 days after the attack on the World Trade Center. When our plane took off from JFK Airport, we actually flew over the World Trade Center while it was still, burning. And that tour was definitely one that easily could have not happened. It definitely took some convincing to get the fellas to get on this plane with me, but I'm glad that we did it, because it look what it turned into. I mean, the relationships, everything else.
Okay. And speaking of EMC, if you care not to answer this question, you don't have to, but a few of my supporters wanted to know what led to Punchline's departure from the group. Would you be able to shed any light on that?
Yeah, I can shed some light on it. It was just it was something that had been brewing really since the first album that we did together. It was just a matter of us not all seeing eye to eye with him. The three of us, me, Wordsworth, and Strickland, are able to see eye to eye on most points and figure things out. Everybody kind of has their own sense of responsibility for themselves. And he just, since that album, he's always kind of just been the odd man out. Just, always that one kid doing something different than everybody else. And it just kind of reached a point where, if you really just want to kind of do your own thing, that's cool. But that doesn't work in a group concept. Everybody has to be considerate of everybody else in a group for it to work. Right. And you can't be a cat that is all about yourself and you and me first. And it just reached a point where it was just time. It had been time for a while. Like I said, it went back to the first album really, but we was able to try to work through it. We had enough time apart, 5 years or so apart. So sometimes when you're apart from somebody, those problems kind of get hidden and swept under the rug, and you kind of forget the dynamics of those problems. And you think, well, I ain't seen you in 5 years, or we ain't really been hanging. Maybe things is different. Maybe things is cool now, and let's try to make it work. So we did the EP, and the EP was actually a good thing because it gave us a chance to find out if the working relationship was going to work, and we found out that it wasn't, and we made the decision.
Okay, I can respect that. And for the record, that first album, the first EMC album, that's the last album I think I personally gave 5 stars to. It's a really good album. And The Turning Point, that's another good one as well. So I'm looking forward to the next project. And speaking of projects, that brings me to the next question, which is what I've been looking forward to asking. How would you personally rank your discography? All of those excellent albums, slept on, unfortunately, but all their excellence, how would you rank your discography?
Well, I would say, when you say slept on, I would just want to just interject and say they weren't slept on by everybody. Maybe by the masses, maybe by the commercial audience out there, the Lil Wayne fans and the Drake fans, and I get that. It's not for them. But
I agree with that.
I will say, in terms of ranking, Disposable Arts is number 1 for me. That album has a place in my heart because, like I told you earlier, it's extended my career for, it's 2015, so we're talking about going on 14 years. Right. It added 14 years to a career that probably should have been over in 2000. So Disposable Arts is number 1 for me. And it always will be. Everything else, you can rank them any other order you want. Long Hot Summer, probably a lot of people love Long Hot Summer because the story that I told on that album and the way the songs were tied together. It might be a better put together album in some ways, but it just doesn't have the sentimental value that Disposable Arts does for me.
Okay. All right, that's interesting. Personally, I still wouldn't know how I would rank them, but yeah, the consensus is that Disposable Arts is your best album, based on what I've seen thus far.
I agree.
Yeah. All right. Are there any artists and producers you would like to work with today that you didn't get a chance to work with in the past? Personally, I'll throw this in again. I would like to see you collaborate with Nas. That's my number one favorite MC of all time. But just wanted to add that in.
I mean, that would be cool. You know, if I could even keep up with Nas, like he's a lyrical dude. He's a lyrical dude. So, it's certain cats that I'm fans of. I'm like, yo, that dude is so dope. But I don't know if I want to be side by side on a song with him because it's gonna be a challenge, a crazy challenge. But he would be a challenge just to keep up with because of the lyricism. But Nas is definitely dope. I definitely wanted to collaborate with DJ Premier. We had plans to do that. Those plans are still in the works. Just haven't been able to find the right moment and project to put the song on. I have a beat that I'm gonna eventually. I've been talking about the beat for it seemed like 3 years now. Just haven't put it together yet. But Premier is one I would definitely like to do. I think El Zai is a dude I would like to do something with. It's a few cats, man. It's a few cats. I like to collab with people on songs where it fits, where they fit the record and everything. Whatever I'm working on, it's not about the name or whatever. It's does their voice, their delivery, their style fit this record that I'm trying to put together? That's all I care about.
Yeah. I can respect that as well. And speaking of hip hop, I talk about this a lot, whether it's on my blog or Facebook or Twitter. I don't think I've ever seen a time where the music itself, it just seemed like it's so secondary and hip hop itself is just another form of entertainment. And I'm sure you ask this question a lot, but what are your overall feelings in terms of hip hop as a genre at this moment?
I mean, there's always good and bad, but that's how hip hop has always been. From the golden, everybody calls the '90s the golden age, and that's great. But let's be clear, the so-called golden age '90s also spawned, MC Hammer, Vanilla Ice, a couple of other acts, PM Dawn, cats that we just wasn't rocking with, and that wasn't really dope to us. As a culture, we just wasn't feeling them. But they sold a lot of records, and they got millions and millions of fans, commercial fans that mess with them. There's always been bad hip hop that won, and there always will be. That's just the facts. So I don't look at today like it's any different than yesterday, because as much as we hear stuff on the radio now and be like, oh, that's terrible. I was doing that in '93. Like, it was stuff on the radio. I was like, oh, that's terrible. So hasn't changed much. There's good music out there, man. There's good music out there.
Yeah, and speaking of '93, when I look back to that period, it's like, everything wasn't bad, but it's like still was a variety and a balance back then. You could hear a Tribe Called Quest. You could hear Dre. You could hear all of those things on the radio and not hear the same thing over and over again,
That's definitely true. The balance was definitely better in terms of commercial radio and what was being played. Wu-Tang Clan was in heavy rotation. Mobb Deep was in heavy rotation. Right. And you won't hear an artist like that now. Exactly. The radio stations, they cater to females between 18 and 25. That's who they're playing music for. Females 18 and 25.
Yeah, and it seems like it's not going to change anytime soon, which is unfortunate, but what can you do? So next up, after all of your contributions and consistency in almost 30 years in the game, and I believe you alluded to this earlier, what's next for Masta Ace overall?
Well, this EMC album, I'm in the studio right now. I'm in the studio working on EMC, finishing, mixing the Tonight Show. That's the name of the album. And as soon as this album is done and we hand it in, immediately I'm starting recording my solo record. So it'll be my first time, career-wise, it'll be my first time dropping 2 projects in the same year. I've never done that before. But
Okay.
I have a head start because I've been writing my album. I've been writing for about 2 months now, so I'm excited about the songs I have, and I can't wait for people to hear them.
And any producers you can name at the moment?
For EMC or for me?
Both, if you can.
Well, on the EMC album, we have Diamond D, we have a guy named Kick Beats, we have a dude named Science, we have Sick Beats. I'm trying to remember everybody. My album is all being produced by one producer. I'm not revealing who that is yet.
Okay.
It's not anybody that anybody's ever heard of. I'll leave it to you. I'll put it to you like that. It's a unknown dude that is gonna take the game by storm as soon as people hear this album and his contribution to this album.
Okay. And are both projects going to be conceptual like the previous ones? And we're talking the EMC one and your own album.
Absolutely. The EMC concept is already completely done. We finished all the skits. Like I mentioned, the album is called The Tonight Show. So it's basically taking you on a day that EMC is the musical guest on The Tonight Show. And so it's taking you from the morning until the night in the moment that we're supposed to, get on stage and perform on this TV show. And so all the stuff that happens behind the scenes and leading up to it, as well as stuff happening on the stage. We got a few really cool Hollywood guests on the album that are guests on The Tonight Show. And, I'm not going to reveal everything now, but if you follow me on Instagram or Twitter, then you have at least an idea of who some of these guests are that are on the album.
Okay, cool. Looking forward to that. Like I said earlier, any tours coming up or anything like that in the new year?
Yeah, for sure. We'll be coming back to Europe at some point. There's some talk about me and Marco possibly doing a little tour in April in Europe. Me and Marco Polo. That's still being put together though. That's a possibility, but either way, EMC will be back on the road this year, and as soon as my solo album is completed and finished and handed in, I'll be setting up tours as well for myself as a solo artist. But it's gonna be a good year, man. I'm excited about it.
All right. And with that said, let everybody know how they can keep up with you and follow you for any additional information on Masta Ace.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. It's just real simple, at Masta Ace, MastaAce. And then I'm on Instagram, and that's at Masta Ace Pics. And then you can also catch up with me on Facebook, Masta Ace Official.
Okay. All right, cool. And with all that being said, I just want to say thank you for your time. I really appreciate this interview. I want to thank you for all of your contributions dating back to the symphony in 1988. And just want to say thank you for everything. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm looking forward to the new EMC project. I'm looking forward to your solo project. And you can expect reviews on the blog. And going back to my blog for a moment, it was real good to actually sit here and put together the project. And I still remember your comments when you were like, incredibly thorough job, brother. I never seen my discography broken down like that. So it was a real good thing to sit here and put together that,
That was a good job, definitely. I look forward to seeing how you feel about the upcoming projects.
Oh yeah, I'm expecting, I wanted to say 5 stars, but
well, you can't. You gotta hear it first. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't anticipate. You gotta hear it first.
Yeah. Either way, I'm looking forward to it. I already got a spot for it on the best albums of the year list, so I'm giving high praise early, but that's what I do, I guess.
Yes, sir.
All right. Like I said, thank you again. Thank you for everything that you accomplished and all of your contributions. Just want to say thank you for everything.
All right, Wayne. Good looking out, man. We'll talk again soon.
Yeah, I hope so. Looking forward to it.
All right.
1, 2. Acknowledge the rap. I don't know what you cats was thinking.